Welcome to the iCritics Movie Review Podcast. I'm professional film critic Sean Patrick. With me is Jeff.
Hello.
And Jeff, where can people get your art?
JeffLasser.com is my website. I have links to my Instagram and my Etsy store, my Public. I just added some Maxine and Pearl and Chapel Roan stickers, so you should go in and get those.
Nice. I've heard of Chapel Roan. I'm hip with the kids.
You're so hip.
I'm sure that one's very popular. I've heard good things about her.
She's I haven't been this excited since I first heard Lizzo. For whatever that's worth.
No, it says a lot. A lot of people were very excited about Lizzo when she came out, and still excited about her in many ways. All right, let's talk about movies, shall we? First of all, we've got 3 new movies that are coming out next week, and one of which is called Borderlands. What do you know about Borderlands?
It's a video game, and Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, and Cate Blanchett's in it.
That about it?
That's about it.
It's directed by Eli Roth.
Oh, that's right. I completely forgot.
He wrote this and directed it, co-wrote the screenplay with Joe Crombie. And this has been in development for about 13 years to try and get this movie made. And they're finally putting it out. And everybody keeps comparing it to Guardians of the Galaxy because they've basically ripped off Guardians of the Galaxy's ad campaign and color scheme and soundtrack especially. What is that song? I can't remember the title of it, but yeah, it's one of those songs that would have fit right in on the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack. It's so kind of derivative that it's actually really starting to put me off.
Yeah, I can sympathize with that.
I've often been accused of judging movies before they come out, and I don't. I'm always incredibly fair. I say that. It's true. It sounds funny to say it, but I don't know. I'm very put off by just how astonishingly derivative this appears in terms of the marketing campaign.
Yeah, that's all I can think of when I see it is Guardians of the Galaxy.
And I mean, at the very least, they're not going to try and do a will they, won't they with Cate Blanchett and Kevin Hart.
Maybe Cate Blanchett and Jamie Lee Curtis.
That would at least be more appropriate, I think. There's just Kevin Hart doesn't have any. Kevin Hart is not a sexual being to me.
No, same.
I'm sure he could I'm sure he could have amazing chemistry with a woman in a movie. I've just never seen it. And I've seen him in movies where he's supposed to have romantic chemistry with someone, and it never appears to be there when I'm watching those movies.
No, and I don't mean this in a bad way because I've dated plenty of short guys, but is it because he's short, do you think? Do you think that
I think it's because I think it's because he's
short and broy?
I think he's not an actor. I think he's a comedian, and I think he's he is so constantly searching for the joke in every scene that he's in. He never pauses to actually connect with another person. Whether it's even his male co-stars like The Rock, he's so busy. His mind is so quickly bouncing from joke to joke. He's never taken the time to actually connect with another actor on screen, as I've seen it. And I've seen all of Kevin Hart's movies. And maybe a little bit with Bryan Cranston in that movie that they were in, but that was a serious, drama, one of the rare dramas that he's ever been in. But beyond that, I mean, anytime he's on screen, he's always doing his shtick. It's always that Kevin Hart shtick, and that comes first before actually acting in a movie.
Yeah, I've never really gotten him. I mean, I get he can be funny. I get that. But he always seems shoehorned into whatever he's in. If that makes sense. Let's get somebody who's funny. oh, you know who the kids like now is this Kevin Hart guy, and he's pretty funny.
Well,
I've seen his stand-up, but
that reputation comes from him having starred in, and this is I believe I can back this up by just looking at his IMDb, and you look at or even the Wikipedia entries on the movies that he's made. A lot of the movies that he's been attached to have either been there were movies that were in development for somebody else that they then retrofitted for him when he got hot, or movies that were built for him and and that he ends up starring in, and that's why you get that feeling about that.
So he's like the human embodiment of a Hellraiser movie where they just take a script and shoehorn Hellraiser into it.
Yeah, it's like because he's Kevin Hart in every movie. I mean, he stretches a little bit in Jumanji because he's a character who has another character in his body, so he's kind of forced to stretch a little bit, but not that much. But like any of his comedies, though, you see him, he's playing Kevin Hart every single time.
Yeah, there are certain actors who they're just always that person, who they are. They can never quite meld into a role.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like, that sometimes can be the difference between movie star and actor.
Mm-hmm.
But some people they're decent actors, but you can't, like The Rock, he's always The Rock.
Right.
I don't really see him as anybody but The Rock every time he's on screen. Just certain people like that just, whoever they are. Will Ferrell used to be like that to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a Will Ferrell fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I have seen him in things where he doesn't seem like necessarily he's not Will Ferrell. So same with Adam Sandler. I know your favorite, but
yeah, Sandler is not. He's not a guy who stretches by any stretch. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't want to denigrate it, like I said, without seeing it. I'm going to go into it with an open mind, and this is a pretty massive cast that we're talking about here, with Cate Blanchett, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, Jamie Lee Curtis, among many, many others. There haven't been very many good video game movies.
Yeah, I'm not a gamer. If they made a Words with Friends movie, I would see that gladly. But I did love to play Pitfall, so Indiana Jones has always interested me.
Mm-hmm.
But I've just never been a big gamer, so a lot of the video game movies have really got to either be free to watch, or I'm not rushing out to see a movie because it was a video game that I played.
Now, the other two new movies coming out next week are It Ends With Us, which I don't know much about this, but everybody apparently, other than me, knows about this movie, knows about this, what this movie is based on. I have no idea.
Okay, so this is an incredibly successful author named Colleen Hoover. She's like I don't know if I've not read her books. My sister and my niece have read everything she's written. But apparently she's some sort of like contemporary romance Stephen King, where everything she writes just takes off.
Mm-hmm.
There's two books. The one is told from Blake Lively's perspective, and that's the one that's coming out this week. That book, It Ends With Us.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently what I have understood, because I'm already at over 100 books for the year, but I've just this has never appealed to me. Apparently there's another one called It Starts With Us that is told from I'm guessing her abuser, his point of view, because that's something that authors have to do now, is to write several books from different perspectives of every character in the book.
So our abuser gets like a villain origin story.
or it's his take on how he's not an abuser and she's just an idiot. I don't know. I literally have no idea. I'm talking out of my ass like I normally do. But that's what I understand, is that it's told from the other side, like they did with Twilight and 50 Shades and all the other things that came out of Twilight. All I know is Blake Lively's in it and some super hot guy. And if I have the chance, I'll see it, but it's not one of the two that I'm going to go for this weekend.
I have to say I have teared up a little bit watching the trailer. The trailer is very emotional.
Well, I mean, that's what it's built to do. So it's succeeding. It's supposed to pull at your heartstrings, and that's what a lot I get when I see these kinds of books that I think she writes. I'm not, no shade at all. I love it when people are successful doing what they do, and good for her. I like to see people succeed, unless they're terrible people, and she doesn't seem like a terrible person. I know that there's a thing with books that these very prolific authors, sometimes, like James Patterson, I don't know if you're familiar with his work at all.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. He is a book factory. He puts out like a dozen books a year, and half of them are written with somebody else. And most of his books over the last 10, 15 years, I guess, have been written by a ghostwriter. He gives them the idea and they write it, and he had to start naming them or something. All I know is that I'm like, nobody puts out that many goddamn books a year. Stephen King, I sometimes he shouldn't put out a book because some of them, are a little iffy, but
right.
I think that, super prolific writers like that, they must have been writing for years and years and years before they hit it, because they seem to have, a dozen books come out in a very short time span like her. So I don't know. People who are her fans are probably gonna be really mad at me. So, but I just didn't have any real experience.
That the hot guy that you mentioned is the director, Justin Baldoni, who plays the role of Ryle.
Oh, wow.
Just an FYI. Interesting note about both that movie and Borderlands is that neither one showed for critics.
I mean, they're critic proof, aren't they?
I mean, I guess. I mean, they both have a built-in audience that's probably going to turn out for them regardless. But yeah, it's just notable because two movies in the same weekend where there are no critical reviews is just notable.
Yeah, I can't imagine anybody who would want to see, and I'm not, again, no shade, anybody who's going to see It Ends With Us does not give a shit about what the critics think.
The critical darling of the weekend is Cuckoo, which has actual reviews, 81% positive, and this one is got a phenomenal trailer.
Yes. This is one of the ones I was talking about when I said that it's a trailer that doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't really have any clue what is going on here other than somebody is kicking the shit out of Hunter Schafer. Poor Hunter Schafer is just getting abused in this trailer. And you just want to know why, what's going on,
Yeah, I cannot wait to see this movie. When you told me it was coming out this weekend, I was like, oh, good.
I mean, again, and we've had so much good horror this year.
I can't think of a really bad horror movie that's come out this year.
Honestly, yeah, it's been that strong that it's hard to even think of what even the weakest one was. Maybe Abigail Was it Abigail? The little girl vampire, whatever the fuck that was. That's probably
only because the trailer gave everything away.
Yeah, it's fun. That's kind of funny that Dan Stevens was in that movie and he's in this movie.
Mm-hmm. He's doing it all.
I don't know anything about the director, Tillman Singer. I believe this is a debut, so nothing really to go on there, but I still think that trailer is so terrific. And Hunter Schafer, absolutely incredible. She was in Kinds of Kindness. She was in the Hunger Games, and she was the absolute standout best part of the Hunger Games.
Absolutely.
I wish there had been more of her in Kinds of Kindness.
Yeah, I wish she'd been in each of the different vignettes, because she's just a great actor. She could have done so many, not that I don't love Margaret Qualley, but what if she had been Margaret Qualley's characters? Just saying.
Interesting note, at the very least. All right, so odd coincidence about the day we're recording this. We're recording this on August 6th, and this happens to be M. Night Shyamalan's birthday and the 25th anniversary of The Sixth Sense, which is our classic tonight. Which neither of us knew before we scheduled this.
Yeah.
I swear to God, we had no idea.
None whatsoever.
So we just had a week. Apparently, M. Night Shyamalan just tries to schedule his movies around his birthday, I guess.
Yeah, he must, obviously, because don't they all come out?
But where would you like to start in the filmography? We chose not all. We're not going to go through everything, but we chose several specific films. Where would you like to begin with our journey through some of M. Night Shyamalan's movies?
Let's start at the beginning for the anniversary.
Oh, so you want to start with The Sixth Sense?
Yeah, let's. Why not? Because I think we've chosen 3. We've chosen The Sixth Sense, Lady in the Water, Village, and then this week's movie is Trap. And I think that they all kind of tell a story of his career. So I think, let's start at the beginning.
All right. Well, with The Sixth Sense, we're talking about August 6th, 1999. He written and directed by him. Not his debut feature. People make that mistake often. He actually directed a very little-known movie with, I think, Rosie O'Donnell as the star. I don't remember what it's called, but it came out in like 96 and was his debut feature. But this is the one that certainly broke him out and showed people who he was. Sorry?
I've got to look that up now, because I feel like I know what it is, and if it's what I think it is, then I'm going to be like, what? So
all I can remember is that it's her at like a boarding school or something, and I don't know. I thought Dennis Leary was in it. Maybe
Wide Awake.
Yeah, that was.
If he had directed Harriet the Spy, I was going to be violently ill.
So yeah, that was his debut, and nobody really noticed him. And it wasn't a very good movie, so nobody really had a good reason to notice him. Then he comes out with The Sixth Sense, and with it, he's taken sort of an element of he's taken obviously a very supernatural premise and combined it with some Hitchcockian elements to create this quite good movie that 25 years later is still the best thing he's ever made. It stars Bruce Willis as Malcolm Crowe, a child psychologist, award-winning. We learned this through some awkward dialogue where his wife has to read to him the thing that he won for some reason. But nevertheless, that's
all
one
exposition.
There's always going to be
just the exposition.
That's just what he does. Is that he doesn't. His idea of trying to be subtle doesn't quite ever happen. So he's a bit ham-handed, but that can work. Especially it can work because Bruce Willis, somehow he is the Shyamalan whisperer. He is like the one actor who seems to understand M. Night Shyamalan better than any other actor. He just gets it. He gets what Shyamalan is going for. Whereas, you'll see if you go on through his career, you'll see other actors completely just overwhelmed trying to understand what the hell the guy is going for. But Malcolm gets shot. He seemingly at the very start of the movie. Great cameo by Donnie Wahlberg of all people, delivering a performance that I don't think anybody would have ever expected him to deliver. And
no, everybody was super surprised it was him.
And you have to still be surprised because, again, he's never done it again after that. Like, he's never.
It's just sad but true.
It's so weird. Where did this come from? But
well, he's Philadelphia.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's one thing about M. Night Shyamalan, that he really loves his hometown of Philadelphia. I mean, his adopted hometown, I guess, but a lot of stuff is very Philly in his movies. And that's, I think, where the,
Well, Donnie Wahlberg is from Boston, so I don't
know. I thought the New Kids on the Block or something. I don't know.
No, they're all from Boston.
Oh, well.
Nevertheless, I know what you're going.
It's the racism.
I get what you're saying. But so Malcolm goes on to come out of this, and he's living his life. He's working with a new kid. This kid who shot him, Vincent, Donnie Wahlberg's character, who was a patient of his years ago, and now he's seeing these similar trends with this young boy Cole, played by Haley Joel Osment, and he's he's kind of diagnosing him the same way, and sees this potential to maybe right himself and do something right for Vincent, who of course ends up killing himself by doing something for Cole. Along the way, of course, we're going to learn that Cole talks to dead people. That's the most famous thing known about this. And again, another phenomenal scene. It is such a great scene. It is exceptionally directed, where Bruce Willis does all of this groundwork. Malcolm does all this groundwork of winning this kid over. And finally, he's willing to tell him what his secret is, that he's able to speak to dead people. Or he sees them anyway. They may talk around him, but he doesn't really talk to them. That is kind of something that Shyamalan plays a little bit loose with, is whether or not Cole has actually spoken with these dead people, or if they've just spoken around him, because at a certain point he learned Latin from one of the ghosts. He learned about his teacher having a stutter when he was a kid, so he can use that against his teacher in a scene. But at the same time, he also doesn't necessarily, he's so afraid of all the ghosts that it seems hard to believe that he would be speaking to them in a way where he could glean information from them. So it's curious in that way. He plays a little bit fast and loose, but it doesn't really matter because, again, Bruce Willis is delivering a performance in this movie that is just incredible, where he holds down all of the stylistic stuff that Shyamalan is doing, all the kind of awkward dialogue Bruce makes feel so natural. And another thing that Bruce Willis doesn't get enough credit for is his ability to work with children. Anytime Bruce Willis is in a movie with children, even bad movies, like North is next up on the 94 podcast, and that's an awful movie, but he is wonderful in bouncing back and forth with Elijah Wood in that movie, because him and a little kid. The movie The Kid is a terrible movie, but he and the kid have a nice rapport. Bruce is great with kids, and he's tremendous with Haley Joel Osment. He's so compassionate and kind and understanding, and able to get on that kid's level in the way that Malcolm is supposed to, in the way a child psychologist would hopefully be able to be. Really impressed with Bruce Willis, just more and more coming out of this movie. He gives up acting not long after this, and I'm not referring to his disease. That's just at a certain point in his career, even before that took hold, he just kind of gave up. People weren't taking him seriously, and he decided, I'm not going to take myself seriously anymore. But I think he was really aiming to make this one his really serious performance, the one that should make him the kind of actor that he wants to be, and that just didn't quite happen.
Yeah, he's so good in this movie that it's hard to reconcile some of his other choices with. And he was coming off of Moonlighting and Die Hard and things like that, which were, tongue-in-cheek, kind of fun, kind of, I don't take any of this stuff too seriously. And then he does something like this, which it got him the Oscar nomination, didn't it?
Did it? I don't remember if he got nominated
I know
or
it
not.
got. I know Toni Collette was nominated for it, but he did something like this, which was just so off brand for him. His tongue was not anywhere near his cheek. He played it with that kind of panic at the end that I never even thought he might be capable of.
Mm.
When he finds out, the twist that everybody knows by now.
If you don't know, yeah.
He just, the panic in his face, and when he's trying to figure out what's going on and how can this actually have happened, and he just really sells it and was really amazing.
The tenderness you don't expect. Like, you don't expect him to be so sensitive and compassionate. And that little conversation that he has with his wife while she's sleeping, Olivia Williams as Anna, it's just lovely. It's just a lovely moment.
Yeah, she's really good in it too. She does a lot of kind of not just like face acting where she's just, it's just her. And she has to convey something that we don't even know yet. And then when we do know it, everything she's done has made sense when they go back and give you the recap of it. Like, oh, she's really good in
it. Yeah, because
she understands the assignment.
She's got the hardest part of trying to pretend Bruce isn't there while knowing he's there. Which it's not an easy way to play any kind of role, but it's also, it fits with the alienation between husband and wife, how they've, he's obviously separated from her. He's dead, but he doesn't know that. And it kind of, but it mirrors like what might have happened if he had survived, and they had grown apart. This is kind of what it would be like, which is very smartly played. There's also, there's this one particular scene that I think really got everybody on this movie, and that is the scene where he's sitting across from Toni Collette when Haley Joel Osment comes home. And it appears like they've just been in a conversation, even though she doesn't acknowledge him, she doesn't look at him, and then she goes on to seemingly act as if he's not even there. But it's enough to see them sitting across from each other to think to yourself, oh, okay, that they just finished a conversation.
That's one of those kind of red herrings that you're supposed to not realize that he's dead the whole time, because they do stuff like that where he's probably talking to her, and she just, he thinks that she's blowing him off, or she thinks that, she's alone, and he thinks that she's blowing him off, and he's just sitting there talking to somebody, and she doesn't know that he's there.
Shyamalan does a great job of anticipating the questions that we're going to ask. Like, there's a scene where Cole goes to a birthday party, and he gets locked in this cabinet where there's like a ghost in there that is incredibly angry and violent. And it's and in your head, you're kind of going, well, certainly nobody's going to believe him that he was encountered a ghost. They're going to blame the kids. And then he includes a scene where Toni Collette calls the parents of the other kid and goes, hey, keep your hands off my fucking kid. Because that's a very rational explanation for how he got those bruises and scratches. Again, it's a very smart movie. It's a well-directed movie, because here he doesn't do anything that's overly stylish or calling attention to himself. He does have this motif where he's starting scenes with dialogue from the next scene. He does that a few times in the movie, but it's not in a distracting way. It's just in a kind of an interesting, move the plot along kind of way, which I did appreciate him doing that. He also uses his use of handheld camera here is much more restrained than obviously it will be. We'll get to that. But he restrains it here to just when the ghosts are angry and in the room, then he'll switch to a handheld. which I do have to wonder, like, there's a couple of motifs he does before he's actually introduced the supernatural aspect of the plot. Like, his wife has a chill in the basement when she's getting wine at the very start of the movie, and there's no ghosts yet. No one is dead yet. And then, so that's one motif that he kind of does before everything gets started.
Yeah, though I'm going to say this, I having just watched that scene, it's setting up the fact that the window is broken upstairs and there's a draft.
Yeah, but she's in the basement.
Well, I know. I'm just saying it's drafty. It's an old house, Just saying.
But the point, the chills become a motif when the angry ghosts are around, or when the fearful ghosts are around. They cause the room to get colder, and there are no ghosts yet. He's doing this before he set that up. I'm nitpicking a little bit, but I love this movie because it's so fucking good. And that reveal, when you saw this movie for the first time, had it already been spoiled for you, or did you get to experience it as it was supposed to be experienced?
No, this is one movie where everybody seemed to look out for each other when it came to the twist. I will say that about 2 minutes before they revealed that he was dead, a guy that I went with was like, is he dead? And I'm like, oh my God, I think he is. But that happened, right where it was supposed to, really.
Mm-hmm.
So
how did you feel about the twist?
Oh, I thought it was excellent. I loved it. It was an organic one. It wasn't one that seemed shoehorned in like some of his other ones, or some of the the twists just in everybody else's movies that thinks they have to have a twist because of this movie. It didn't seem shoehorned in. It was really perfectly laid out. I know some people have tried to like take it down, but I don't see where you can really nitpick it to death.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the only people who get really angry are the people who had it spoiled for them before they got there. I think those are the people who were upset, because you can only experience this one time. You can never recapture that feeling of being surprised. And I do recall being surprised. It did get me. I'm sure. I have more memories of Signs than I do of this, because Signs, I think, is an even better movie than this one. That movie got me in different ways that I appreciate and still love today, despite the star of that film. But,
yeah.
But this movie, I mean, I kind of teared up. Even watching it 25 years later, I kind of teared up at the end when Toni Collette's monologue about her mom and fuck.
Oh God, yeah.
She's incredible. She's the heart of the movie. Like, underneath it all, like, she is the heart of the film.
The look on her face when he tells her that she's proud of her, her mom was proud of her, and the way that her tears just spill. She is one of the best actors working today.
Yeah.
And I will say this again, because every time we talk about Toni Collette, I have to say that she was robbed of the Oscar for Hereditary, even a nomination.
Yeah, absolutely. No question about it. If people often ask, like, how do you determine what good acting is versus bad acting? And really it's a feeling that you get while you're watching it, where someone who is so familiar to you is able to become someone else before you, and you don't even realize it's happening. How Bruce Willis is one of the biggest stars in the world when he makes this, but while you're watching The Sixth Sense, he is Malcolm Crowe. And for him to be able to pull that off, being one of the biggest stars in the world, isn't just that's what acting is. And you can see like the two different Bruce Willises when you watch his stuff after this and before he becomes sick. I don't want to include any of those awful movies that he was making while he was sick. I don't even think those count. Somebody was just kind of taking advantage of a guy who really didn't want to be there. but needed
he
the
just
money.
had to be there to make money for his family.
Yeah.
So,
but like prior to him fully falling ill, there are movies that he made where like the later Die Hard sequel, especially the one with his son or whatever the fuck that was, like that's he's just a person standing there. And he's not, and you can sense that he's not really acting. And you compare that to The Sixth Sense, where you see an actual actor at work. That's how you know. That's how you know what good acting is.
yeah, he was amazing in this, and I wish that he hadn't given up.
Yeah.
Before, several years before he got sick.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real shame. I also wish he'd maybe stuck with working with Shyamalan more. I guess they had kind of a falling out after Unbreakable that they did repair by the time that they did Glass.
Yeah, Glass
Split, yeah, for like a scene and then Glass, but but yeah, for a time I guess they had a bit of a falling out that prevented him. I think he was maybe going to be in Signs. He would have been excellent. I think he would have been great in that. He just, there's something about what he does where he understands Shyamalan in ways that other actors don't. And we'll see that especially coming up a little later. But The Sixth Sense is an unimpeachable classic.
I agree completely.
The Village, 2006. Starring Joaquin Phoenix, Adrien Brody, Bryce Dallas Howard, William Hurt, Sigourney Weaver, Brendan Gleeson, and many others. It tells the story of a village seemingly out of the late 1800s. It's cut off from society. There are apparently monsters in the forest surrounding them that prevent them from leaving. So they've got this whole society compressed into this one space. Joaquin Phoenix is pressing against these restrictions about going into the forest. Because of these monsters, he tries to go out there. He ends up getting hurt. And then Bryce Dallas Howard, who plays his love interest, who is blind, she decides that she is going to try and leave the village and go get medicine to try and save him. This is kind of the early cracks in the Shyamalan armor. Like the first time that truly, like I'd given an incredibly positive review to both Signs and Unbreakable and Sixth Sense. And at that point, I hadn't seen Wide Awake. So he was on a roll, like an almost incomparable role at that point with me. And then The Village came and I'm like, what was that? I'm not quite sure what he was going for here. I think he had the twist in mind and that he just kind of built from there. And I don't think he really had a full vision for what he wanted to do with this movie.
Yeah, I think that am I wrong in thinking that somebody said that he ripped it off of something?
I think that could be true, yeah. I think there was a story that did something very similar to this in terms of the ending anyway. Like a Twilight Zone episode or something.
Yeah, something like that. I just remember I remember reading something like that or a long time ago. I think it was, it was Margaret Peterson Haddock's book, 1995 book, Running Out of Time. So I remember reading that 20 years ago when, this movie came out, and reading about the lawsuit. Not that I didn't read the book, but there was very similar. And this is not an idea that would necessarily strike me as an original idea. And I think that's why the twist doesn't work the way it does in The Sixth Sense. Or even Unbreakable, while I don't think that necessarily is a twist, I think that's, just the plot of Unbreakable. I think he really wanted to get back to a twist with this, because Unbreakable, while it's an excellent movie, was not the success that The Sixth Sense was.
Sure.
So I think that, he was like, well, I have to do a twist. And what can be the twist this time? And I saw it coming very early in the movie.
Same.
And I don't want to say that makes makes me sound like I don't like it, because I actually like this movie.
Hmm.
I don't love it, but I mean, there's enough to like in it. The cast and some of the imagery is really scary, and you're while I kind of figured it out pretty early, I still was wondering why, if that makes any sense. And I think that he did a pretty good, reason why they would do this. Not that it really makes a lot of sense, but it was a decent enough uh, reason why they would move into a village in a forest preserve. So,
the predictability is kind of a death knell for this movie, because you can't help but see what's going to happen here. You can't help but see that the twist is coming, that this village is set in modern day, and but the movie treats it like it's the biggest surprise you're ever going to get, and it just feels it's kind of like, oh, sorry, no, we guessed that already.
mm. I don't hate it, and I know that it's the first of those movies where everybody decided they were going to hate him for doing the twist, but I didn't really hate it. I didn't hate him for doing it. So,
I wasn't looking for it to hate him. I mean, I loved 3 movies of his in a row. I was looking for a fourth one to love just as much. The problem with the twist isn't that it's just a twist. It's just that it's not a very good twist. It's a very predictable twist that you can see coming from pretty far away.
Yeah.
It's also just not as well constructed as the other ones. Like, again, I do think he came up with this idea for a twist first and then built the rest of the movie. And I don't think that's an organic way to make a movie. I think he was trying to find a way to justify the twist. And in doing so, he kind of gets lost in the morass of trying to invent this lore for this village that will justify the twist that he wants to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a twist with a movie written around it, and that's not the best way to go about it. I just think that I think he succeeds when he doesn't when a twist is organic,
mm-hmm.
like it was in The Sixth Sense, like it was in Unbreakable, which again I don't really see that as a twist. I see that more of just Bruce Willis figuring out who he is after this accident.
Mm-hmm.
There are like The Visit, which we're not really going to talk about, but that twist is it's organic. It's that makes sense that he would that. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. None of his movies really make a lot of sense if you pick them apart.
Right.
You know what I mean. It was organic, and it worked with the movie.
I mean, there are threads you can pull, like I said, on The Sixth Sense. With his kind of, he's very awkward with dialogue. He always has been. He doesn't quite know how to visually do exposition. He kind of does, and then he'll forget that he knows how to do it, and just kind of hammer you with expository dialogue that doesn't feel organic. And I think that kind of troubles a lot of his actors. I think the reason that so many actors have a problem working with M. Night Shyamalan is that they don't quite understand his cadence. His approach to dialogue is very strange.
Yeah.
He wants so badly to be funny and to be charming, but he's only really funny and charming when he's got a funny, charming actor that's saying these things that he's come up with to say. Like again, Bruce Willis is a funny, charming guy who can pull off some of the, again, awkward dialogue that there is early on in The Sixth Sense. And here we get the first example of something that becomes like canon, kind of with M. Night Shyamalan, where he'll encourage an actor to give a performance that is just genuinely bad. he'll indulge somebody to do something that is downright embarrassing. And yes, I'm talking about Adrien Brody delivering a performance here that is, I mean, just wildly terrible to the point of honest to God embarrassment.
Mm-hmm.
He also did, I mean, he did to Jaden Smith. We'll talk about another one he did later on in the show. He tried to do it to Paul Giamatti, who's just too good of an actor.
Yeah.
But Bryce Dallas Howard, though, poor thing. She's really good in The Village, and she's really fighting through in The Village. She will not be able to fight through in the next one.
Nobody, not even Mike Tyson, could fight his way out of that movie.
That's very true. Joaquin Phoenix has a kind of Bruce Willis-y sort of approach to Shyamalan. He has a kind of an understanding from, previously working with him. So he doesn't necessarily get embarrassed by his performance here. He's also got a character that's much more grounded and believable than the other characters in the movie. He has a very natural curiosity to his character that plays well with him. But man, Adrien Brody, I was cringing. I was covering my face when I saw this. Anytime he did anything, it's like it was before. This is before Tropic Thunder, but it was like the first time I had that thought that would come to fruition of Tropic Thunder, where you just don't go full. If you know, don't go all the way with that.
Yeah, and he went full. So like watching this again, I kind of forgot about the part where the monsters were the townspeople or whatever,
right?
Trying to scare everybody into being good and to stay away from the woods. But when it's him at the end, and I was like, he looked so much like Franz Kranz, who's also in the movie, who I was like, wait, I thought that was supposed to be Adrien Brody, but it looks just like Franz Kranz. And I'm like, and I really, really had to look at it. And then, he escaped the pit. Oh, so it was Adrien Brody at the end. But this time, because I don't know, I had Franz Kranz on the brain from Cabin in the Woods or whatever, but I was embarrassed for him. I was embarrassed for M. Night Shyamalan. I was embarrassed for audiences in 2004 because you just don't, even then, it was like he was playing Leonardo DiCaprio in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, only with less finesse.
Adrien Brody definitely is an actor who needs a strong-handed director who really tells you what they want. He is not an actor who should ever, under any circumstances, be given free reign to do what he wants. Because when he does what he wants, he does this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it was embarrassing all the way around.
And it's part of many of the reasons why I don't think The Village is very good. But he's definitely the standout aspect of that.
Couldn't he have just been mute?
If only.
I mean, just mute. He's just a mute. He
would have found a way to overact that too.
He would have walked around waving his arms every time somebody came by him. I don't know.
I don't know. He still would have found a way to make it embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Speaking of embarrassing, Lady in the Water.
No. God.
So you'd never seen this?
In the Water.
You'd never seen this before?
I had never seen this movie because I heard so many bad things about it, and by then I had seen The Village, and I was kind of like, yeah, he's fine. It was, like I said, I didn't hate it. It's not nearly his best or my favorite work by him. But he just had such a bad reputation after it opened. I never went to see it in the theater, and I'm like, I don't think I want to even bother because I heard it was based on a bedtime story that he told his kids, and I was just like, I don't know. I'm not a kid, and I don't need a bedtime story. Although now I watch movies to fall asleep too. So
it's fun. This is so kind of the backstory a little bit on this is that he took this to Disney where he made his previous movies, and they read the script and they're like, no, what is this? And he just insisted on this vision for the movie. He just insisted that this is the movie. This is the next movie I'm going to make. And if you're not going to make it, I'm going to go elsewhere. And that's how it ended up at Warner Brothers, they really wanted to make an M. Night Shyamalan movie. So they're like, hey, what would you like to make? And it's like, I'd like to make this. And Warner Brothers like, well, we want to work with you. So, all right. And he made this. The main character's name, right off the bat, you know you're in trouble. When you get the main character's name is Cleveland Heap, played by Paul Giamatti.
A heap of Cleveland shit. That's all I hear that name.
He like runs an apartment building where all these kooky characters live, and one night he finds a woman in the pool played by Bryce Dallas Howard, who is is she a narf or a scrunt? I don't remember.
She's a narf.
She's a narf, okay.
Which somehow sounds so wrong. Sounds so like
you gotta give it to Shyamalan. He had the entire world having to say narf and scrunt to try and explain what the hell this movie is.
Because he couldn't call her a cunt. Uh-oh, we're getting an X rating.
So yeah, there are narfs and there are scrunts, and the narfs are good and the scrunts are bad, and we need a team like Lord of the Rings to come together and defeat the scrunts and save the narfs. And that's this movie, and you can't help but scratch your head just going, what the fuck was going on in this fucking movie? Mm-hmm. Why? Like, this is the first time where M. Night Shyamalan is truly revealing himself and the just kind of bizarre mind that he has. Like, I think in the previous movies, you've got Disney definitely holding his hand, definitely trying to keep him in place, definitely not trying to allow him to, wander off into a field as he does here. And with nobody to hold his hand and nobody to hold him in place, he just goes completely off the rails. You've got there's a character in this movie played by Freddie Rodriguez who just has one really muscular arm. Why? Why?
I'm only working out the one side of my body. That is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. And I'm a big Freddie Rodriguez fan from way back, and I just wanted to punch him on his left side because
he's quite a good actor, and he's embarrassed by this. Jeffrey Wright is an amazing actor, and he is at a loss to try and make any of this work. Poor Bryce Dallas Howard is just a deer in the headlights. She just cannot do anything with this nonsense. She's given it her all. She's trying to invest in this, but you can see the defeat in her eyes.
Yeah.
She's trying to deliver some of this story and deliver some of this backstory. And she's like, I got nothing, man. It's narfs and scrunts.
You know who I'm particularly embarrassed for is Sarita Chowdhury.
Oh, yeah.
Having to A, be married to M. Night Shyamalan in this movie. B, to talk to Bryce Dallas Howard like a Valley girl and try to explain some of the stuff that's completely unexplainable and doesn't make any sense. And for a fact that a lot of the scene that she's doing in that bathroom, she's doing alone because Bryce Dallas Howard was probably like, not today. I've got to call in sick. I just can't handle this.
And she has to play so much of the movie wet. Like, the poor girl.
Yeah.
And then just in the epic of I don't get it, just in the epitome of I don't see how other people see me, M. Night Shyamalan casts himself as the writer whose book is going to change the world. Like, oh man, like it's both like completely on the nose and completely oblivious at the same time.
He's very talented. I don't want him to do anything but cameo in these movies.
He's not a good actor. Yeah, he's not a good actor. And to have him to place himself in a role where he's got so much to carry is just a truly bad idea.
Yeah.
Paul Giamatti is some kind of like legend, because I mean that he doesn't pull this off, because nobody could pull this off and make this work, but that he doesn't embarrass himself, and that he's able to come out of this still being Paul Giamatti, an actor we all love and respect. That's talent. That's acting, man. He throws himself into this bullshit, but keeps himself at just enough of a distance so that it doesn't rub off on him.
I would also like to point out, however, that Paul Giamatti in one of the Spider-Man movies played a mechanical rhinoceros as a Russian gang member.
Yeah.
So he's not completely off the hook with making poor choices.
Fair enough. But nevertheless, I'm just wildly impressed that he's not embarrassing in this movie.
Yeah, and when he goes underwater to try to save the day, and I'm just like, yes, I don't know why this is not working for me, but Paul Giamatti as some sort of bathing beauty just doesn't. I just can't.
Yeah, and the complete lack of any chemistry between him and Bryce Dallas Howard. We're just trying to connect with each other as actors. There's just nothing there. There's nothing there. But I think it's the
age difference between them.
I don't know,
because he perpetually looks 55 years old.
He does, yes.
And she looks like she's 20. So
it's probably he's 57 years old right now.
Now?
Today, he is 57 years old, yes. And she is 43. So it's not that far. It's like 14 years.
Oh, okay. Well,
he just looks so much older than he is. And
like I said, perpetually 55.
Yeah. But
he looked 55 in this. He looked 55 in Sideways. He looked 55 now. He looked 55 in John Adams. I
don't think it's a problem with him and Bryce Dallas Howard as actors. I think it's the script. I don't think anybody could connect with another actor when they're having to say these words.
No, this is literally one of the worst things he could have ever and has ever done. Again, I think he's very talented. I think he's got some great ideas. This was not one of them. And the execution of this was like the execution of cinema. And I mean that in the other sense.
And that he immediately after this made a worse movie is just like, wow. He made The Happening right after this, and that's amazing. And then he made The Last Airbender, which is somehow worse than both of them. And you're just your mind is blown at that point that he could.
So I'm going to say this.
Be that bad.
The Happening it's so bad it's good feeling, but it is terrible. I mean, it is, ma'am, please, ma'am, please don't. No, ma'am. I mean, that's like a 2-minute scene.
Yeah.
Where all Marky Mark is doing, and I refuse to call him Mark Wahlberg, where all Marky Mark is doing is saying, ma'am, no, ma'am. I just cannot. So
there's no explanation. The only thing to come out of that is just I love Mark Wahlberg trying to explain to people what happened. He's just like, I don't know, man. I just wanted to be in a movie with M. Night Shyamalan.
And the fact that he plays a teacher.
I just wanted to play a science teacher.
Beating up gay people. He's just, God.
That's very funny. It's very funny.
And how do you recover your career from working with both Mel Gibson and Mark Wahlberg?
It's something.
How do you still have a career? I mean, I don't know. I just don't get it.
I'll say this about Lady in the Water. And I think I might have told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again just because I think it's funny. I saw this at a critic screening with a fellow critic, Linda Cook, and we're walking out of the theater, and we both know we've seen just a movie that is just absolutely terrible. But I turned to Linda and I said to her, "You know what? He hung his balls out there." And he did. He really did. He hung his balls out there. And they got cut right off because it was a terrible fucking movie. But he put everything out there. Like total earnest commitment that I have to admire.
I think he has an incredible amount of heart. I think that he has great ideas. And I think that he doesn't think those ideas completely through every time.
Yeah. I think he needs a heavy hand of a producer or a studio that is like, Buena Vista Pictures made his best movies. And the reason they were his best movies is because they were leaning on him the entire time. Like, hey, let's not give Bruce Willis one giant arm. Let's not do that. We won't do that. Let's not call any of our characters narfs or scrunts. We're not going to do that. Mm-hmm. he had a heavy hand that was involved, and without that heavy hand, you get Lady in the Water, The Happening, The Last Airbender, After Earth, Old, and Glass. And somehow you get Split. I don't know how that happens, that you get a movie like Split that's actually really good.
I didn't hate Glass either. I thought,
I hated Glass.
I know you did, but in the context of the story, I thought it was okay. Didn't love it. It was just fine. So.
Well, all right. So we have arrived at the new movie. The new movie is called Trap. And this is where we get to another actor I have to just feel so sorry for in Josh Hartnett, who is entirely defeated by the M. Night Shyamalan style in this movie about a serial killer who is trapped at a pop concert with his daughter. The police have found out that he's going to be at the concert. They've set up a sting to where they're just going to pull aside any man who attends this concert and compare him to a psychological profile given to them by a profiler played by Haley Mills for some reason.
Don't you get it? The trap, the parent trap.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
She is 78 years old. She is 78 years old, and she is the top FBI profiler. Just let that sink in for a moment. I'm not old shaming. I'm not intending to old shame, but I'm not going to buy when you tell me that a 78-year-old woman is the number one profiler for the FBI. That's just, man, you're a 78-year-old man either. Like you're 78-year-old anyone is not going to be the top FBI profiler. They're not going to be in charge of this case. They're just not. You're going to be retired by that point.
Now,
but putting that aside.
He does not have to be playing 78 years old. Not all people are playing their age.
Sure.
I'm just putting that out there.
But she also looks 78 years old. And also the plot clearly is a cat and mouse plot where you're supposed to have two people going back and forth, one trying to catch the other, and that's not happening because Haley Mills couldn't do those scenes.
Yeah.
She couldn't be the cat to his mouse. She couldn't be the one trying to catch him because they had to limit the number of scenes she could be in so that she could, take naps.
Can I also say this? I think if you want to go meta,
mm-hmm.
You know who else you could have got to play her?
Jamie Lee Curtis?
Cat and mouse? No. Jodie Foster.
Jodie Foster, that's the pair. Okay, yeah, I was trying to think of... Yeah. But I don't think Jodie Foster wants to work with M. Night Shyamalan. It's going to be hard to find anybody who wants to work with him after this. This movie's awful.
Okay.
This movie is so bad.
I don't think it's awful. And
really?
I sat there watching it, and when I said this is dumb, and then I thought about it. I'm like, would I legitimately dislike this movie if it wasn't M. Night Shyamalan? And I asked myself that question during the movie, and I was like, you know what? I think if I didn't know it was him, I would have enjoyed it more. It's not a great movie. It's good in the fact that it's like a really good episode of Criminal Minds. Okay.
Criminal Minds could have done this
and
way better.
I happen to really like Criminal Minds.
I just watched the season finale and really enjoyed the new season. I thought the final episode was a little bit of a letdown, but that's another podcast entirely.
Are we going to start a Criminal Minds podcast?
I mean, did we just start one? Maybe.
Maybe. There is an episode of Criminal Minds that is, I swear to God, it completely rips off Black Christmas.
Really?
And I got to find it and I'll send it to you. But it is, I mean, so much is just on the nose as somebody who knows everything about Black Christmas. Okay. That aside, there are things I really enjoyed about this movie. First off, I think his daughter, who played Lady Raven, is incredibly talented as a singer and a performer. I think that while I believe that this plot was driven to give her the spotlight, I think she did a really good job with it. I think given a better director, her acting would have been better. That being said, I thought her stage presence and her performing as Lady Raven was really, really good. She can sing, she can dance. I thought Josh Hartnett, most of the time, I believed that he really was looking for a way out. The ridiculousness of him getting away with everything all the time, just by happenstance, really didn't, that's where it stretched credulity for me. But those are the times when I said, if this was not M. Night Shyamalan, if this was Cary Grant and Alfred Hitchcock, and it was exactly the same, would I give it to him? Yes. But because it's M. Night Shyamalan, I kind of went in with my arms crossed, so to speak.
I feel like I had a completely open mind ready for this, and that opening act, those first few scenes are so terribly acted. Josh Hartnett is so bad in those scenes where he's trying to be the doofy dad who's trying to relate to his daughter, and he's doing all these fucking cliched TGIF ABC Friday night sitcom bullshit. What does this mean? It's crispy. This concert is crispy. That kind of bullshit. I'm sorry, that's like TikTok fucking humor. Like, that is just like a bad TikTok or an episode of Fuller House. Like, that's where that joke belongs. That's where the characters belong. It's so bad. Josh Hartnett is completely defeated by the style of M. Night Shyamalan. He cannot do the dialogue that Shyamalan wants. He is not a guy who is charming on his own. He can be made charming by a good director. And him trying to force being charming just feels terrible, on top of which Shyamalan's choice to constantly shoot him in these desperately unflattering close-ups that, I mean, you can count his fucking nose hairs in a couple of scenes. It just completely places him at a complete disadvantage in the story. Like, the choices of where to put the camera are so random. He has absolutely no stylistic approach going on whatsoever, other than weird, needless close-ups and characters talking directly into the camera, or just these completely bland, forgettable setups. I wondered if he just completely ceded directing to somebody else, because I can't imagine that he's lost the ability to direct a movie.
You know what that was? The direct-to-camera stuff? He was trying to make the Silence of the Lambs. where all the close-ups and everything are spoken directly to camera so that it feels more intimate. What Jonathan Demme really knew how to do, he's trying to do and does not pull it off.
Not even a little bit, because it's forced. Because it doesn't feel like a motif that is building through the movie. It feels like something he just kind of randomly does. And that's the entirety of his direction in this movie, is so fucking random. And part of that, I do believe, and I cannot prove this, I've heard nothing about this in the media, nobody's spoken about this. I believe that he designed that profiler character to be that cat and mouse thing. When that didn't work, when he cast Haley Mills, because I guess he just wanted to work with Haley Mills and Parent Trap. That's funny. That is his style of humor, by the way, as we've seen throughout.
You know what, though? If she had, at the end, if she had just looked deadpan at the camera and said, oh, that's a real Parent Trap, I would have given this movie 5 stars and it would be my top 10.
But I think he planned it that way, but he wanted so badly to work with her, then found out that she is 78 years old and has survived cancer and cannot withstand the rigors of day-to-day shooting of a movie, that he had to shoot around her, which is why we don't get a lot of scenes with her. We get a couple of scenes, and she's not a bad actress. She's been doing this a very long time. She's convincing enough, but she's just badly cast as this character. And then she's not, I don't think she was physically capable of doing the things that this character is intended to do. Like, I don't think his daughter, the pop star character, I don't believe that was supposed to go the way it did. I believe that had to invent that while they were making it, because they're shooting around the fact that Haley Mills is supposed to be in those scenes.
I think that Haley Mills would have been great as like the nosy neighbor, and she would have had, scenes where she's working at the concession stand. Maybe she's that character who, the neighbor who, I didn't know you were going to be here and blah, 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 blah. And then at the end, she could have done something, but.
Oh, that neighbor. Yeah, wow. Just another person who M. Night Shyamalan did her so dirty. He did her so dirty the way he directed her. Just making her into this shrill, like, not even, like, it's so bad. It's like one of those, she was acting like one of those people in those Facebook reels where, like, they're pulling a prank 3 feet from the people they're trying to prank, and everybody's having to pretend that they don't have peripheral vision and they can't see this person doing this elaborate, putting on this elaborate outfit. Like, that's the kind of acting that this poor woman does in this movie, and no one stopped her. No one prevented her from doing that. She's so bad in those scenes. Josh Hartnett is already bad enough, but then she comes in and she's even worse.
Yeah, I didn't hate the movie. Like, I really went in, like I said, with my arms crossed, prepared to hate it. I didn't hate it. It's not even close to his best work. I would say it's the Village level as far as what it pulls off or tries to pull off. I can take this script and write a better one in about 2 hours. Again, that's not something, I'm not trying to say that it's, terrible or anything like that. There are like points in this where I can really see what he was going for and if he just changed a couple things. And like you said, Haley Mills is one of those things. I love Haley Mills. I would love to see him, if she did one of those movies with fucking Diane Keaton or something, I might actually watch it. But she's not, this is not a role for Haley Mills. This is a role for Jodie Foster or Jamie Lee Curtis or somebody, who could say, I have been chasing this guy for several years. I retired and I can't let it go. That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Totally buy it.
Someone who would be physically capable of performing the movie that was planned. Because I don't think this is the movie that was planned.
Yeah, I mean, everything from the time he goes in and talks to Lady Raven and says, "You caught me." That is exactly who he should have been talking to, the Haley Mills character.
Mm-hmm.
You caught me. You're going to get me out of here. And, taking Lady Raven with him to the house, or, they could have all left together or whatever.
Right.
I will say that when they get to the house, Allison Pill, that dead look on her face while she's trying to be hospitable to Lady Raven, she was the best part of the Allison Pill. Best part, because she knows, and you can tell. Like, that's when I kind of was like, I think she may have set him up, because that deer in the headlights look that she had the whole time she was trying to be hospitable and sitting next to him, but far enough away that she knows what's going on. That really, her performance was my favorite in the movie.
I don't think Allison Pill is bad in this movie at all. I just think the close-ups on her are just these unnecessarily close. Like, he doesn't know how to properly set up a close-up, where he's just got the camera so close that you're looking up her nose. Like, it's that bad. And it doesn't help her at all that Josh Hartnett's also doing, getting these terrible close-ups where he's just bug-eyed, trying to do anything to try and convince you of how crazy he is. And again, throughout the final act, he continuously mistakes, bugging eyes and whatnot as acting. And it made the whole experience just kind of shockingly terrible.
Well, again, I think that all of that close-up stuff was him trying to do the Silence of the Lambs, because he's working with an FBI profiler and all that.
Kind of, because it's played by somebody who can't actually play the role.
Yeah. So I think that I know what he was going for, and I think if somebody at Buena Vista Pictures had just said, "No, you're not putting Haley Mills."
Well, no, this is Warner Brothers.
No, I'm saying, like you said earlier,
oh, yeah,
Buena Vista. Warner Brothers just distributed this. They didn't have a hand in it at all, like they used to have. So, if you had somebody at Warner Brothers saying, "No, you're not putting Haley Mills as a profiler who's chasing a man for 10 years," if they had done that, yeah, he had to rein it in and let it go, but he did the exact opposite at the time he needed to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, when he should have let it go, he reined it in, and when he should have reined it in, he let it go. So I think
it's a complete misfire to me. This movie, just completely.
Yeah. So I didn't hate it. I see that there are good parts to it, but overall, yeah, it's about Village level.
So, in terms of, have you seen After Earth? Have you seen The Last Airbender?
No, I never got into The Last Airbender anime, so I didn't see it. And then I've heard so many bad things about it. After seeing The Karate Kid, there was no way you were going to get me to see After Earth.
Oh, man. But you have seen, you've seen The Visit, obviously, and you've seen
I saw The Visit.
The Glass. Did you see Old?
Mm-hmm. I did see Old. I didn't hate it as much as everybody else did. I didn't love it, but again, I didn't find it offensive or anything the way some people do.
Did you ever hear my weird theory about Old?
No.
And nobody else has ever had this take on it. I'm not to say that I'm special or anything, but nobody else had this take. But I kind of based my take entirely on the fact that M. Night Shyamalan casts himself as a guy who is filming everything from a distance. That this whole movie is basically about cinema, and that the people on the beach are essentially actors, and how we treat actors, and how Hollywood treats actors as they age and become disposable. I think the movie is actually about cinema.
That's much more interesting than what I would have thought. But I think, that makes a good point. I mean, I know it was based on a comic book, a French comic, but that makes just as much sense.
I don't think it's good, but
no, I mean,
but I do think that at least I had fun coming up with that idea about it, even if that idea is actually not what the movie was intending, which I don't think it was. I think it's almost incidental. He just needed a role for himself to play. And there are plenty of elements too that also just don't jive with my theory. But at the same time, the idea of, aging quickly in front of the camera and then being seen as disposable to the point of death is just that's an interesting way to look at the relationship between movies and actors.
Yeah.
I wish the movie had actually been that, but nevertheless. All right. What is your number one M. Night Shyamalan movie?
Oh, The Sixth Sense by far.
Mine is Signs, but I do think that The Sixth Sense is a better movie. I just have such a great experience with Signs the night I saw it with this crowd of people. I mean, it was the biggest theater, completely packed, and people just with their jaws on the floor the entire time. When you have that kind of energy in a crowd, it's impossible to beat. And that is what my experience of Signs was just being in this amazing crowd where everybody's feeling everything the same way. You can't touch that kind of experience.
I did not see it in the theater. I didn't see it till several years later because it's been a long, long time since I've been a Mel Gibson fan. So actually seeing anything of his in the theater was not going to happen. So yeah, I didn't see it in the theater. So I saw it, over the course of an evening on video, stopping here and there. But I thought it was a very good movie. I didn't have that kind of experience with it though.
So I've got Signs, The Sixth Sense is my number 2. Then Split. I love Split. I think Split is great. Mm-hmm. Then Unbreakable. And then everything else he's done, I think, is absolute garbage. Maybe Knock at the Cabin is not garbage. It's kind of up in that middle area of what he's done. Maybe right above The Village. The Village is like a tipping point where it gets bad. The Visit, I guess, is up there as well, right next to Knock at the Cabin, as kind of, good movies, but not quite great. And then everything after that. I mean, just that run of The Happening, The Last Airbender, After Earth, that is comparably as bad as the run of Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, and Signs is good. It's like the universe needed to even out somehow through M. Night Shyamalan. Like, okay, you made these 3 unimpeachable classics. Now you got to make 3 absolute pieces of trash.
I mean, there are other directors that have a similar track record to him that, like not everything is Scorsese level, not everything is, but I think it's the fact that people see him as kind of a narcissist because he puts himself in everything. Mm-hmm. And not just as cameos. If he had put himself just in his cameos, like he was the doctor, if he'd done just small little things like that, or if he'd walked by walking a couple dogs like Hitchcock did in Psycho, if that kind of, or The Birds, if he, that kind of thing is fine. I think most people would just think, oh, that's funny, let's look for his cameo. Instead, he gives himself this long lady in the water role that, basically you're the savior who saves everybody. Mm-hmm. I don't think people would expect as much from him if he didn't do stuff like that.
He also doesn't help himself when he opens his mouth. Like when he talks about The Last Airbender, he says he says The Last Airbender is a great movie because it made $100 million, and it's like that has nothing to. People buying tickets has nothing to do with the quality of your movie. That says nothing about buying a ticket. Says nothing about the quality of a movie. Zero. People buy tickets without knowing if the movie is good. That's you're literally watching the movie hoping it will be good. You don't know it's going to be good going in. That's not a sign of quality. But he equates those things. He equates a successful movie with being a good movie. And he does that oftentimes when he's talking about putting himself over constantly as being this ahead of his time genius. And that's going to happen to you when you have such quick success as he had with The Sixth Sense. It was such a rush to go from obscurity to being the most talked about director in the world. That's going to fuck up anybody. But I think he's always been a little bit weird. I think he's always been just somebody who's just a little weird. And when that weird gets out, he always does it. It just always looks bad.
Yeah, I don't see, I see him as an average director with a few really good standout movies.
I don't understand him. I'll be honest, I don't understand how he goes from being a director who can be exceptionally talented to being a director who has zero talent. To the point where like in Trap, there are moments where I'm wondering, does he actually remember how to direct a movie? Has he just left that behind? Like, because I just don't understand. I don't understand some of it. The choices are just so bizarre that a good director would not make the choices that he's making. And yet I know he's made good movies. How did he do that? Like, well, you had mentioned Scorsese. When Scorsese makes a bad movie, it's The Irishman, and like it's 3 hours long, but you certainly can't call it like out of character or terrible. He hasn't left his senses. But Shyamalan, when he makes a bad movie, he makes Lady in the Water, and you think this guy needs to be institutionalized.
Yeah, I don't think he's a bad director. I think he is an average director who has had some standout films, but because the standout film, his first film was like the top, and it's like every third movie is really, really excellent. Or, like Sixth Sense, and then Unbreakable was really good. And then it's like the next one is Signs. It was decent. It's like, I think that people they're kind of led to believe that he's a better director than he is. Mm-hmm. But even a stop clock is right twice a day. You know what I mean? I think he's average, and he has some standouts. Happy birthday, M. Night. You're average. Happy birthday.
I mean, you calling him average is nicer than a lot of the things I've said about him. So,
well, yeah. I don't see the hate for him. I think the hate is anger because he doesn't give you what you want, and that's like, it's like Star Wars fandom. You're mad because you didn't get what you played with your action figures with in 1985. People who get really, really mad at M. Night are remembering his super high highs like Sixth Sense and Unbreakable and Signs. You're not
putting me in that category.
No, I'm saying when you get to that point and you're putting out some really good movies, but then every other one is a stinker, then I think people need to readjust their expectations of what he does. When they like I said, I went in it with my arms crossed because he has more minuses than pluses in my book, but I wasn't. By the end of it, I was like, oh, there are some actually good things. And if M. Night hadn't directed this movie, I would have liked it probably about 20% better than I did. So.
Yeah, I just think stylistically it's just a weird movie, and I just don't know what he was going for with his actors. I don't know what he was going for. I found myself embarrassed for everybody involved. His daughter comes out of it fine. You're right about that. I mean, she gets taxed a little bit at the end because I don't believe she was meant to be where she was in the movie. I think maybe the bathroom scene she was meant to be there for, but everything else, I don't think she was meant to be. I think that was the profiler character that they couldn't use, which explains a lot of what's wrong with this movie. But that doesn't explain the choices, like on the many, many terrible close-ups, or the way he directs his actors, the way he directs Josh Hartnett to play everything. It's just off. It's like it's like when you watch the American Idol auditions and somebody's auditioning and they're clearly very bad, but they don't know they're bad. That's the kind of performance that Josh Hartnett is delivering here. He doesn't know that he's bad, but he's very, very bad. And I don't know, that's why I'm calling this movie terrible, because of that. It's not a hatred for M. Night Shyamalan. I'm rooting for the guy. I love The Sixth Sense. I love Signs. I love Split. But when he's off the chain and he's making the weirdest possible choices, it almost seems like he just forgets that he's directing a movie, and he forgets how to like the very basic elements of how to make a movie just kind of leave him.
Yeah, I guess I won't look forward to his movies like I did after The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, but I'm not going to go in with my arms crossed again.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm fascinated
because I didn't hate everything about this movie. So.
I think based off of what he's done, there's always a chance he could make another good movie. I mean, Split certainly doesn't make any sense in his filmography. Like I was, quite reasonably writing him off. Then he made The Visit, which was, decent. And then he made Split, which I think is legitimately a great movie. I think it was in my top 10 in 2016. And I was just kind of like, who is this guy? How does he? Then he made Glass, and I thought Glass was just awful, like just borderline unwatchable. The way it folded in the Unbreakable stuff, it just felt just completely unnatural to me. It was just bad, and I just went back to I can't predict. I'm willing to continuously give him a chance because I just don't know when is he going to make another Split? Like, is he going to pull off another Unbreakable? Like he has that ability. I've seen him do it. At the same time, I've seen him make The Last Airbender, and it's just unwatchable crap. So I don't know. I go into his movies hopeful, I think, every time, and that hope was dashed within the first 10 minutes of Trap. All right, we're in the bad Shyamalan verse here, so let's strap in. All right, let's next week we're talking about Borderlands. We're talking about It Ends With Us, and of course the most anticipated movie of the week is Cuckoo. Regardless of what anybody thinks, it's Cuckoo. That's the one you should see.
Agreed. That's the first one I'm seeing, and Borderlands is if I have the chance, which I think I might, but I'm also working out of town for a week. So, and
if it's available, I'm hoping the classic will be a movie called The Forbidden Zone, which you can find out about for yourself. 1980, and a lot of Danny Elfman involved. All right, Jeff, thank you.
Have a good night.